Sausages, sausages, and more sausages?
In this video, we're going to be making jalapeno and cheddar bratwurst. We start with some cut up pieces of pork and beef, in this case a New York pork roast and a beef chuck roast. I also added some additional fat I trimmed off my earlier ribeyes to get the ratio up to roughly 70-30. We do a first grind with a larger plate just to get the meat started to emulsify. We'll do a second finer grind later once we season the meat. After our first grind, I like to add the seasoning before doing our second grind. I always start with the curing salt to make sure I don't forget it. We have roughly 6.5 pounds of meat, and we need 1 tablespoon of curing salt per 5 pounds, so we need approximately 1¼ tablespoons of curing salt. Now, as a general rule, I don't usually do recipes. My best work has always been sort of seat of the pants. I know what tastes good to me, so I usually only measure critical components. I measure the salt because the Himalayan sea salt is an extra fine grind and packs quite the salty wallop per grain. The last thing you want is sausage too salty to eat. Next comes the coarse ground black pepper. Now I like pepper, and I go pretty liberally with it. We are seasoning 6.5 pounds of meat after all. Then some garlic powder, not garlic salt. We've already added all the salt we're going to add. So garlic powder, and go liberally with that as well. Red pepper flakes to spice it up a notch. We won't go too crazy with the heat because we will be adding jalapenos during our second grind. Then we add some paprika, some cayenne, and some dark chili powder because I can't help myself. And that's it for dry seasonings. Seems like a lot, but trust me, this will turn out perfectly seasoned. Of course, you can add or subtract whatever you want because this isn't a recipe. So you won't hurt my feelings if you omit some or all of these ingredients. Though I'll caution you on bland sausage. Nobody wants to eat a bland sausage. Now we come to another critical component for moist sausage. This is non-fat dry milk. This is used to help retain moisture in your sausages and helps to give your cooked sausages that little snap when you bite into them. The measurement is 1 cup per 5 pounds of meat, and again we have 6.5 pounds. So around 1.25 cups will work nicely. Now I don't know what will happen if you go too much or too little with this ingredient. I've always just followed the guidelines, and some sausage makers don't use this at all. I always have, so I follow the directions. You do what you want, though.
Whatever, I do what I want.
All right, now we mix by hand. Okay, that should be adequately mixed for our second grind where everything's going to get mixed completely. This grind always takes longer because the already ground meat likes to start suctioning inside the throat. Really got to push it through.
putting ice cubes through it. It's not going to damage the grinder, and it'll help force the rest of the meat out of the auger. Make it slightly easier to clean, but only slightly. It's more about not wasting the meat. Since we have to add moisture anyhow, a little ice doesn't hurt. Alright, most recipes you'll find say that you're supposed to go a 1:5 ratio of cheese to meat. But I love cheese, so I'm going to go a whole lot more than that. This is, of course, high temp cheddar cheese, so it won't melt while we smoke it. It will only melt when we cook it. We can add more later if we need. Alright. My brother turned me on to this a couple of months ago. Of course, the alcohol won't survive the smoking process, but it will impart a flavor. So the Kilt Lifter is what I'm using. It's an amber style ale, Scottish. This is going to be our moisture. And it doesn't hurt that I'll drink this if I don't use it all. And we get our hands dirty. Might sound odd, but this smells amazing. Did use about 7 jalapenos in our 6.5 pounds of meat. About 1.25 pounds of cheese. And looks to be about half of that tall boy of beer. And I think I've got the proper moisture content. Let's check. Yeah. That's what you want right there. Don't want to work it too much. You'll start to warm the meat. You want to keep this as cold as possible for as long as possible. If it starts to get too warm, throw it back in the fridge and let it cool down. And there you have it. There is our sausage meat.
sausages.